We saw in the previous video how to write a function that takes as input n and as output returns a length n list of all threes. So let me copy the code from that video and let me put it here, but let me call it something else. Let me call it, how about const here for constant function. Okay, and so let's just check that it's still working. So this returns this length 5 list of all threes. And so let's see how to write a function that takes as input n and as output returns an alternating list between 3 and 8. So 3, 8, 3, 8, 3. So let's call it, how about alt1? And the reason I'm calling it alt1 is because we'll have some other versions of this function later. So for now, let's call it alt1. Input is still n, and it's fine to use this const n inside of this code. So it's definitely better to use this const here as opposed to like copy and pasting the code. That's not the right way, because if we later improve this code here, then we want that to automatically get improved anywhere else we're using it. So that's a reason uh, to specify this function by name as opposed to copy and pasting the code. So let's say my list equals const n, and let's just return my list just to see what this is doing so far. So alt1 4, hey, this returns these 4 threes. Okay, good. And so now what we want to do is we want to return the same length list, but we want this element and so on to be replaced by 8s. So how can we do that? Well, let's leave that there for now. So I want to go through. This is the first index. Remember, we start counting at 0. The first index, the third index, and so on. So here is one nice way to do this. I can say for I in range. And let me leave that part blank for now, and I'll come back to it. And then I'm going to say my list. So up here, we never used this I, like that variable I, that did not get used anywhere in the for loop. This one, it is going to get used. So we're going to say, take the ith element in my list and set that equal to 8. And this would not work if we were using a tuple, for example, because tuples are supposed to be immutable and you're not allowed to replace the ith term with something else unless you just make a whole new tuple. It's not technically true that tuples are always immutable, but if they contain something like integers, then what I said is true. So, I mean, right now, if we try to run this, it's not going to work because I don't think range without anything in it makes sense, or at least, at the very least, it doesn't do what we want. And so we want to go through the first, the third, the fifth, the seventh, and so on. We want to start at 1, and I know that I never have to go past n because it's a length n list, and I want to go up by 2. So this should work. Let's check. Alt1, and let's do 10. Yep, that worked fine. And let's try one with an odd number of terms. Yep, that also worked fine. So one nice thing about this strategy is we did not have to, for example, ask, is the index even? Like this is the second index, this is the fourth index, or is the index odd? That was just sort of automatically figured out by this range 1 and 2. And so remember that saying, start at 1, go up by 2, never include n, okay, and stop before reaching n. Okay, so this is first version of the alternating vector or alternating list function that I wanted to write. And in the next few videos, we'll see some alternate ways to make this alternating list function.